I went into Drop with super low expectations. I mean, the trailers for this thing did nothing for me. But I am happy to say that the actual film itself exceeded those expectations. Now, is it a horror film? Hello everybody, my name is Kat and welcome back to my channel where we talk about all things horror. I'm still figuring out the new setup here. I put up a They Live poster because that film feels more relevant now than ever. So today we are talking about Drop. I was really lucky that the movie theater that I work at was able to get a sneak preview of this. I help operate a very small art house cinema, so we don't usually get these kinds of movies, but it's always exciting when we do. The studio gave us t-shirts, which is really cool. And if you have seen previews for this film, then you know that it is about a widowed mother who has not gone out on a date in a very long time. And when the film starts off, we are joining her on her first date in years. She's a little hesitant about it because this is really one of the first times that she's going to be away from her kid, who I think is like 4 or 5. And unfortunately for her, her premonitions about this date going wrong end up being true when she starts getting a bunch of mysterious drops on her phone, basically telling her that, hey, you need to kill your date, and if you don't kill your date, I'm gonna have someone go into your house and kill your son. And then it's typical thriller fashion where she is trying to race against the clock to figure out who is this person who is sending her these drops and these messages before she actually has to go through with killing this guy, who she actually does like and have a genuine connection with. This is a film written and directed by Christopher Landon, who has done films like Happy Death Day and Freaky, and his attachment to the film is really the only thing that made me somewhat intrigued by it. Like I said, the trailers did nothing for me, but I'm a huge Happy Death Day fan. I've liked Christopher Landon's other work, so I was like, okay, even though this looks like it's gonna be kind of lame, it probably will end up being somewhat good and entertaining just because he is involved with it. This is co-written by Gillian Jacobs and Chris Roach, and when I saw the poster outside of the theater and I saw Gillian Jacobs, the writer, I was like, oh wow, Britta wrote a horror film. It is not that Gillian Jacobs, it is a different Gillian Jacobs. Drop is a Blumhouse movie. They did it in partnership with Platinum Dunes, and it seems like this writing duo has done previous work for Blumhouse. They wrote films like Truth or Dare and Fantasy Island. Drop is definitely one of their better offerings for Blumhouse. So again, went in with super low expectations, and I will say that overall I had a lot of fun. As I said, I was pleasantly surprised at how much I enjoyed the film. This is definitely a very fun, mainstream popcorn film, right? It's the film you can go and just shut your brain off for 90 minutes. It is a very like typical PG-13 thriller, so just know that going into it, because even though it's produced by Blumhouse and Platinum Dunes, Drop is not a horror film. It really is more of a thriller, and it's a pretty tame thriller at that. At our screening, we had a wide range of audience members, from kids as little as 12 and 13 to older adults, the full spectrum of the movie-going audience. I was not expecting the vast age ranges that we got coming into this thing, and I will say that the audience really loved this film. There were a couple people here and there that were like, it wasn't quite what I thought it was. I think those were the people that were maybe hoping it was going to be more on the horror side of things, but overall, like, the audience, they were clapping, they were cheering, like, they were totally into it. And there were several people that came up to me and my co-manager after the film and were like, that was great, that's one of the best films that you've shown in a while. Even our security members, because we have to hire security when we do these advanced screenings for the studios, just to make sure that no one's like pirating the film. And usually they're very like kind of whatever and not really watching, but even they came up to us afterwards and were like, wow, that was a really great movie. So it worked. I think 98% of people will have a fun time with it. Again, just don't expect it to be like straight up horror film. If you are a fan of Christopher Landon's previous work, I do feel like Drop does have that very like outlandish quality of his movies. It does have the humor of his films. I think the humor is a bit tame compared to something like a Happy Death Day or a Freaky, and obviously you are not getting the gore. Well, I feel like Happy Death Day and Freaky, like those felt like films made for the horror crowd, whereas this one does feel like it's trying to appeal to more people. But you can still definitely feel his style in here, especially in the use of like camera angles and camera movements. You get a lot of scenes in which action is happening and the camera is doing all these kind of funky angles. There's a lot of Dutch angles happening. You'll have moments where someone is like getting knocked down and the camera kind of like follows them and like tilts on its side. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I feel like we had similar shots like that in Happy Death Day. So definitely having a more playful aspect with the camera work there, and definitely using that to heighten the protagonist's overall state, both internally and externally. And as I said, easy watch, only an hour and 25 minutes. It goes by super quick. It's a very stylish film. Like, I really loved the setting. This is definitely a bottle movie in the sense that you're spending 95% of it in this restaurant location, but the restaurant is highly stylized. It has all of this nice warm lighting to it. I don't know if this was a real restaurant that they shot it. They actually shot this in Ireland from what I saw at the end credits, which is interesting. So I don't know if there actually is a bar like that in Ireland. I don't know if they just built the set, but as a sucker for really great interior design, I was like, yes, love it. It was also fun too because obviously the main gimmick in this film is the fact that she is getting these drops and these text messages from some weirdo in the bar. And we've seen this in film and TV now, where if characters are like texting something, it's very common just to see the little like text bubble pop up on the screen. And the way that this film does it is very similar to what you see in the trailer. Every time the antagonist sends her a message, it pops up in this big bubbly font, and it has like I don't know how to describe it except like a almost disco ball quality to it. Like, you know, a disco ball, how it has like little like mirror squares and it's like shiny. That's like how the text looks like, and I feel like gave it a very distinct feel and look and tone compared to other films that just do the kind of basic text bubble. And I like the way that they played with the text as well, in which it pops up in like weird angles, it pops up in like various places around the restaurant, very much giving off a very claustrophobic feel for the protagonist, and being able to do that in a way with the text without actually ever having to see the antagonist, I thought was really clever. When they do show the antagonist, because you will learn who it is, I was almost like, maybe we can just go back to the text bubbles. The shiny text bubbles almost seemed a little bit more menacing than who is actually running the whole thing. The protagonist, Violet, is played by Megan Faye, I think is her name. I know that she's previously had spots on shows like White Lotus. She's great in this movie. Like, she definitely carries the whole film. She's very charming, right? She has that classic kind of Hollywood beauty about her. And she does a great job of playing this single mom who you do learn has a history of trauma, and she's trying really hard to put herself out there and to go on this date and just having to deal with the situation. And she does such a great job of getting the audience on her side. The other actors are a lot of fun too. I don't think they're as strong as Megan is in this film. And I think that just has to do with the fact that the other characters are, you know, a bit two-dimensional. It tends to like lean into more of like caricatures for a lot of the secondary people that Violet encounters. For example, you have this waiter character who is waiting on Violet and her date. He is played by Jeffrey Self, who is a great actor. I had a lot of fun with him, but he is the character that's playing like the very over-the-top, very eager waiter. It's like his first night at the restaurant, and when he's not working at the restaurant, like, he's trying to make it as an improv actor. He mentioned Second City, so I guess this film is supposed to take place in Chicago. He's definitely a comedic relief in the film, but he does have that very like specific type of comedy. He'll come over to Violet and her date and be like, oh, I see you two have ordered shots. Yay, that's fun. Shots, shots, shots. It's like that kind of humor, which some people are probably going to be okay with and find him really funny, and other people are going to find him really annoying. There were definitely like some moments where he actually kind of breaks down this like overeager waiter facade and shows what he's really thinking about these people, and those moments are very hilarious. Really the only character that I wasn't really that sold on was actually her date. I mean, the guy was fine, he was just a little bit one note, and I was like, yeah, you're handsome, but there wasn't a lot of charisma there where I was like, yeah, I can see why she would be enamored with this guy, why he would be the one that she would be willing to go out of her comfort zone to meet and go on a date with. And because it is in a restaurant setting, you do get a lot of of secondary characters that Violet is meeting throughout the night. It is one of those things where as soon as she stepped into the restaurant, she started bumping into people and she's meeting other people at the bar. I was watching it and I was like, okay, that's the bad guy. No, this guy at the bar is the bad guy. No, the bad guy is the piano player. And the film is smart enough to know that you as the audience are probably going to be like trying to suss out who is the antagonist here. And it definitely has fun with that in moments, and it is very playful with that. I do feel like the film does a good job of not giving away who it is right away. Like I said, it's kind of one of those things that once it is revealed who it is, it's a little bit like, oh, okay. The film hints at various characters throughout the runtime, and I guess I was kind of hoping maybe the film was going to subvert expectations and it was actually not going to be any of the very obvious people. But I will say to that, like, I do think the film is more interested in this relationship between Violet and her date and this relationship between mother and son. Yeah, at the heart of it, this still is very much a love story, and it is very much a story about hope and second chances and family. Do you know what this film actually reminded me a lot of? And I kept thinking about it the entire time I was watching it. It very much has a very similar feel to something like Wes Craven's Red Eye. This film has a very similar setup to Red Eye, in which you have a female protagonist who is literally stuck in this one location. In Red Eye, it's the plane. Here, it's the restaurant, and is having to deal with this antagonistic force who is threatening her family. The antagonistic force is trying to get the female protagonist to do something that is going to harm another person, and they have guilt over that. They don't want to do that, but they know that if they don't, then their family member is going to get killed. And they're also in a situation in which they have to try to act normal. And so that's where they're running into these like secondary characters and trying to find creative ways to let people know that they're in danger, that something bad is happening to them, until like the very end, where then it's just mad dash to try to save the family member. Beat for beat, a very similar story. So if you're someone that likes Wes Craven's Red Eye, I know it's had a kind of renaissance moment over the last few years. If you're someone that likes that type of film, then I think you'll definitely love Drop. Is Red Eye one of Wes Craven's best like crown jewels of his filmography? No, obviously not. I personally like it. I actually really love it for what it is. It's a film that like I can just kind of throw on in the background and just leave it playing while I'm doing other stuff. It is a film that does have a certain coziness to it, I think, just because it is a very like internal film. And yeah, I feel the same way about Drop. Like I think Drop also has that vibe to it. It's not asking much of you as the viewer, except just to have fun. I would say out of the two, I think I do prefer Red Eye more. Only because I feel like with Red Eye, I mean, you have Cillian Murphy as your antagonist, so he's gonna always give you a great performance. But I feel like there was also something really enjoyable about watching that relationship between Cillian Murphy and Rachel McAdams in that film, and just kind of seeing how that relationship develops over the film. Whereas we don't really get that here with Drop, because again, you don't see the antagonist until like the film is almost over. And I feel like in Red Eye, because we see them interact throughout the whole film, when she does finally figure out how to one-up him in certain scenarios, it feels a lot more satisfying for her character. I will say though, I do think this film has a great setup and payoff. There is nothing I love more than when something is introduced at the beginning of the film and it plays some kind of role by the end. I love a full circle moment, and this one has such a great payoff that is very much connected to Violet and her relationship with her son, and it's just done so well. And it was one of those moments where once it happened, the audience just erupted in applause. Do I think the film is like this masterpiece? No. As with any kind of thriller of this type, it is one of those films where if you think about the plot too hard after you've seen it, like it's kind of like, things fall apart a little bit. I feel like Red Eye had this problem too. With these thrillers, you always have the antagonists that are either like part of some super secret government organization, or they're part of this like big organized crime organization, or they're super spies or whatever. And it's like you really couldn't come up with an easier way to kill your target. Like you really had to come up with this like big elaborate scheme. Like why are you relying on just some like random person to do your bidding for you when you have no idea if they're actually going to be able to follow through with it, or if they'll, you know, somehow mistakenly kill themselves before they kill your specific target. Like it's just one of those things where it's like you could have maybe done this an easier way, but then we wouldn't have a story, then we wouldn't have a film. So, but yeah, just know what it is going into it. It's a standard PG-13 thriller, and if you can just shut your brain off for 90 minutes, you will likely have a lot of fun with it. I think this would be a really great matinee showing. It is a film that you could take your family to if you have older children and are okay with them seeing a film like this. I think it would be a suitable date film, especially if your date is someone that maybe isn't into like the hardcore horror stuff. I know this still doesn't come out for a couple of weeks, so if you're looking to see something in the interim, these two films are not horror films, but I did see Novocaine a couple weeks ago. We also got a screener of that for my theater. Admittedly not my favorite, but there is some really good gore effects in there, and I do think a lot of the action sequences are a lot of fun. And then I also recently saw Steven Soderbergh's Black Bag, which is excellent. I loved that film. That's another one that's just like a really easy 90 minutes, super quick. And if you like spy thrillers, I think this one plays with that formula in a really interesting way. I know these two films are kind of struggling at the box office right now, so I would say if you're in the mood to go to the theater and just want to see like a matinee showing or something that's quick, try giving these films a shot. We're still in our kind of lull period for horror movies. I know Blumhouse has The Woman in the Yard coming out next week. I feel like that film is going to go one of two ways. It's either going to be that like kind of typical Blumhouse formula, or it could be very surprising and actually be a really decent film. I guess we will find out soon enough. I will say I don't think they're doing any sneak previews for that film. Usually when studios have confidence in their movie and they know that the film is going to generate good word of mouth, that's when they tend to release it. I mean, again, we got dropped like what, 3 weeks before it's supposed to come out. Like that hardly ever happens. So I think it speaks to the level of confidence that the studio has in this movie. I do know that they are doing early screenings in other parts of the country. I'm not sure if they're doing that on the international scale as well, but if you were someone that was also able to catch it early, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, or come back here and tell me what you think about it once you've seen it when it gets released theatrically. And thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.